Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another discussion video. Earlier this week, you may have seen the 6 winners of the set 10 ban list. Lots of ban list content, lots of thoughts flowing through my brain here as we're kind of rolling into a new format. So today, we're talking about the losers of the set 10 ban list. Some strategies, some themes, some ideas that are kind of hindered from the ban list that maybe you didn't think about. So that being said, we'll get into it. Guys, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video. If you want to help support the channel, there are many free ways to do that during these trying times. You can always like the video, maybe share the video with a friend, maybe watch an ad, and if you want to buy or pre-order any of the cards you see in today's video, you can always use my link in the description to TCG Player. All that stuff helps out a great deal. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys that are still watching, still supporting through these crazy times. That being said, let's get started. So obviously the biggest ban, the one that I was the most excited for, Gogeta Hero Revived. This ridiculous boss monster with like 4 different keywords and a sparking 10 effect just did not ever need to exist in the game. It's a really cool thing that Bandai is taking a different design approach with their game, in the sense that they're now taking the approach that they don't want boss monsters that just end the game outright. And a lot of times Gogeta 7 was the type of boss monster that ended the game outright. Even though we got cards like UI Goku the Unstoppable, even though we got cards like Champa the Trickster and Mutaito, this was still a type of card that set your opponent so far back, and it was so hard to clear because of the barrier deflect that it was probably going to stick around to the next turn, be a huge thorn in their side, and then whatever you could play on that next turn and next to this Gogeta was pretty much going to end the game. So there are several strategies that take a really big hit from the loss of Gogeta 7, one of which probably the least amount of pain because this leader hasn't been relevant in a couple formats now. That's going to be Miraculous Arrival Shenron. When you think about Miraculous Arrival Shenron, the ultimate to give a battle card triple attack, Gogeta 7 is always the go-to card. It was always the most successful version of Shenron, no matter what format you look across. Shenron Gogeta was a deck in its own namesake. Of course, you had the Shenron Ramp strategy that played this and the Kaioken 7-drop Son Goku. So with that being said, Shenron Ramp loses a lot of value. Like if that deck were to ever come back, it would have to come back with a very different boss monster since leader is gone, and you can't play the generic ramp stuff anymore since World Peace is gone. So I really have no idea where Shenron will go from here. They're gonna have to maybe go like, I don't know, at all cost Vegeta, but at that same time that card is so much more vulnerable, doesn't have barrier, doesn't have deflect, so it's gonna have to go with another generic boss monster with hopefully barrier and deflect. I mean, I hope that never comes about because that's pretty degenerate. Whenever Shenron's good, it's really broken. But with that being said, Shenron Gogeta, Shenron strategies in general take a big hit from the loss of Gogeta 7. Another strategy takes a big hit from the loss of Gogeta 7, Mono Blue Skillless. Mono Blue Skillless was always one of the most popular versions of Skillless, possibly the most popular version there ever was, and this deck always leaned into Gogeta 7 as its top end win condition. You'll see a lot of decks floating around that, you know, they play the one random Fu Shrouded and Mystery, and it is a really good like top end boss monster card, but a deck like Skillless Mono Blue that was able to play the vanilla Gokus and vanilla Vegetas, just it made perfect sense to play Gogeta 7 because it was a turn 5 win con, because it set your opponent back to 3 cards, and especially in the format this was a super viable deck. Janemba was the big bad of the format, and this deck kind of slapped around Janemba because it set the opponent back so far. So that's another one of the big losers of this ban list. If Mono Blue Skillless was to come back, and we know we are getting some Skillless support in set 10 with the new Shenron Unison, well, Mono Blue loses its best boss monster, and that's kind of nice in my opinion because I think it gives people a bit of a reason to experiment with other colors. I personally think that yellow or red or some type of combination of that in Skillless could be really good. I think blue yellow Skillless could be really good. So me, I'm always happy that Gogeta 7's gone, even though it is affecting Skillless. I think it's totally fine. And then another big loser on the ban list due to the loss of Gogeta 7, that's going to be Universe 7 Invoker. Now, how is this a loser from Gogeta 7? Even though it kind of flies under the radar, you have to remember that during the Tournament of Power back in February, our last major event before the pandemic started, you have to remember that Justin Rios won that tournament with U7 Invoker, and he was playing a very unique version of U7 Invoker. He was playing a version that played Gogeta 7. What did that allow him to do? Well, obviously it gave him one of the best win conditions in the game, Gogeta 7, and it gave him access to a lot more negates than most Invoker decks were playing. He was playing the red 4-drop Vegeta negate out of set 9, which becomes a 1-drop when you have X amount of extra cards in the drop area. He also played Uneasy Alliance Goku, so that gave him 8 negates right there that were also targets for fusion for Gogeta 7. And of course, like I said before, Gogeta 7, one of the best win cons in the game, it really allowed Invoker to control the opponent, because over the course of, you know, the first 4, 5, 6 turns, you're stopping your opponent, shutting down most of their plays, and then your top end with Gogeta 7 you're pretty much wrapping up from there. Now, that wasn't always the most popular version of U7, but it does seem like it was the strongest because it was the one that won tournament power. You know, not many people were on that version, so it only goes to show how powerful it was to go through the tournament, continue to win, obviously piloted by a great player, but nonetheless, it wasn't a very popular, wasn't a very represented deck, and that's always going to hurt your chances to top or win an event if your deck is not very highly represented. So that being said, this definitely hits U7 Invoker in a big way. And now one thing I want to talk about, kind of a loss, but kind of just like a phenomenon that we're going to experience in the game. Whenever a format elongated, whenever a format decided it was going to become longer because decks were better at stalling, decks were better at playing control, Gogeta 7 was always a card to be looked at. If you remember the Chicago Regional, where I got third place with Red Yellow Surge Goku, there was the tricolor version of Surge Goku rolling around. It was probably the more popular version, but they weren't playing Gogeta 7 yet. Fast forward a week or two later to the PPG Championship in Orlando, tricolor Surge Goku was everywhere, and they were main decking Gogeta 7 because the format was expanded, because Surge Goku was a good mid-range deck, because Piccolo was a good control deck. The format was going to 6, 7, 8 turns. Gogeta 7 was the top end card. So now when a format goes that long, we're not automatically going to say, okay, let's see what Gogeta 7 can do, which I'm actually really excited about. That is going to be a loss for certain strategies going past set 10, which I think is, again, totally fine. Moving on, we're talking about blue-green's ability to fight monocolored decks. Now, don't get me wrong, blue-green I think is still very strong. There are not many decks in the game that manipulate resources like blue-green. It's a very good hand control deck, a very good board control deck. But before this ban, it was very, very likely that blue-green was going to have a lot of auto wins against a lot of these monocolored decks, especially ones like Shenron, especially ones like Gotenks, any of them that basically were mid-range or control, basically any of them that played longer games. Blue-green was possibly going to have a very, very easy auto win matchup just because of 21 Violent Predator. Think about Violent Predator versus Hatchiyak when that was a more relevant deck during the blue-green Piccolo format. Hatchiyak automatically lost to blue-green Piccolo, and that was pretty much just a matter of the fact, and that was all thanks to teching 2 copies of Violent Predator. It was just that simple. So a lot of people are upset that Violent Predator is gone. I think it's perfectly fine for the game. Again, I did put a suggestion out there to maybe give it the ultimate tag. That would have been a really, really cool way to influence deck building and kind of manipulate the format, but regardless, the ban, in my opinion, is absolutely warranted. If this card was around to exist, you just wouldn't be able to play monocolor mid-range decks, especially if Piccolo was going to maintain its full power, which luckily it didn't. But blue-green will find a new home, and if it did, 21 Violent Predator would easily be an auto include and auto win against a lot of these monocolor decks. So it's really, really good, and it is a loss for blue-green, but it doesn't mean that blue-green can't play against monocolor at all. That's not what I'm saying. So keep that in mind. It's just a loss in terms of its auto win capability, not a loss in terms of its playability. Next up, we're talking about energy ramp hate. Now, we did the winners video. Of course, we talked about ramp in that video because it is a big winner coming off the ban list, with cards like Force Ejection Mass Sand and Piccolo Begrudging Respect coming onto the ban list. But energy hate is something that to me made a lot of sense because it wasn't very easily usable. It was only really good sideboard tech against ramp strategies, and sometimes ramp strategies can be a bit degenerate. Ramp strategies are kind of in that kind of medium where they're either really degenerate or they're kind of mediocre. So when they are really good, like for example when Shenron ramp was a thing, I really wanted to have Force Ejection Mass Sand in the side deck. The fact that the card's now banned, pretty unfortunate. And I did want to talk about the meme here, the Explosive Power Vegeta. If you guys never knew or don't remember, there was an energy lock deck with Explosive Power Vegeta. Basically, when this card attacks, draw 1 card. You may choose up to 1 of your energy and add it to your hand. If you choose to add a card from energy to your hand, you can choose 1 card in your hand and add it to your energy. So the thing there was you could pick up an energy with this leader and then not place an energy back down, and then you could use Force Ejection Mass Sand to start sniping your opponent's energy because your opponent would have more energy than you. So basically there was an energy lock deck. Hasn't really been relevant ever. There was like one format where it was like kind of okay back when the cards first came out, but regardless, I am going to miss the energy hate. This is probably the one I'm a little bit most concerned with. Not that I think the game is going to be broken without it, but I just am kind of sad that the Force Ejection Mass Sand and the Begrudging Respect Piccolo are no longer usable. Just my opinion. But moving along here, Mono Black aggro is obviously a big loser on the ban list. What I want to do here is talk about some of the ways you can adjust the decks and some of the ways the decks are hurting. So Ghastly Malice Demigras, you guys know if you're fans of the channel that I'm a big fan of Mono Black Demigras. I posted my deck profile a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, that's turless. I don't think the Mono Black version of Demigras is going to be great for aggro. I think it'll probably position to a better mid-range deck because of the ability to use the power booster Demigras, which brings out your 7-drop Demigras, which brings out another 4-drop Demigras. I think it's called Dark Demon Control Demigras, that starts ripping your opponent's hand. So basically big boss monsters, hand rip. I think Demigras can transition nicely to a bit of a more mid-range strategy in that respect. When you're looking at mono black Boo, it's a bit more unfortunate. This deck can't really pivot to mid-range. It doesn't have that long playability, but it is still pretty aggressive. I mean, the Boo chain still gives you, like, you know, 5+ attacks every single turn. Couple that with some certain U3 cards, that can work out pretty well. But the loss of Turles does hurt this deck's aggro ability a bit. It's still a strong aggro deck, though. I do want to make that a very, very clear point. You might kill a turn later, but still killing turn 3, turn 4 against certain matchups, especially ones that are very defensive, very stally, that's still a successful aggro deck in my opinion. And you're able to just dump your hand into attacks and then refuel. So don't underestimate the ability of Boo to drop really big attackers, but it does lose a little bit of steam from the loss of Turles. Vegex, kind of unfazed from the loss of Turles, to be honest. Like, I've tested it without Turles. It's still super strong. It's still just free real estate. You mill top cards of your deck, you play the Vegeta, you play the Trunks, you play the Spring Kai, you get free real estate, and then your Unison card dumps your U3s. It is very, very powerful in terms of that, but again, does take a little bit of a hit. Maybe it brings Vegex from absolutely broken tier 0 to a bit more balanced, but it is very powerful, very reminiscent of Storm. Last one I want to talk about in this video, guys, Goku Black ramp, absolutely decimated on the ban list, big loser of the ban list. The leader gets errata to say if you use this effect, you can no longer ramp for the turn with other card skills. Very unfortunate for the leader. Kind of shows that it's not going to get revamped or rebooted, which is what a lot of people wanted. I would have liked to see it. Would have been pretty cool. Maybe it can be balanced if it still attacks, draws a card, and ramps on its own and can't ramp any other way. Maybe that could be balanced, but that could be kind of broken depending on, you know, how powerful that leader is in the grand scheme of things. Plan for Destruction obviously hurts a lot of the Goku Blacks and also ramp stuff. They kind of had to hit it though, because this card with Zeno Edge's base was a really big balance problem. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope I didn't break too many hearts with the losers of the set 10 ban list, but I do want to know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time.